Tonight, the boundaries between present and past dissolve like morning mist over the Nile Delta. Feel the air heavy with desert heat and the scent of baking bread, where echoes of copper chisels against limestone still resonate through the millennia. If this journey touches your soul, join us again and whisper from where you listen to us. Now dim the lights, breathe deeply. Let us dream with memories that are not ours. I awaken before Ra's first light touches the eastern horizon, when the world still belongs to the cool embrace of night and the whispered prayers of my ancestors. The workers' village of Hayt el Ghurab stretches around me in the pre-dawn darkness, a sprawling community of mud brick houses and narrow streets that has become my world for these past months. My name is Khayyam Wasset, and I am a stonemason in service to the god king Khufu, builder of the greatest pyramid the world has ever known. The air carries the familiar sounds of our settlement awakening, the soft shuffle of sandaled feet on packed earth, the gentle lowing of cattle in the nearby pens, the rhythmic grinding of grain that will become our daily bread. These sounds have become the heartbeat of my existence, as constant and reassuring as the flow of the sacred Nile that gives life to all of Egypt. In the distance, the massive pyramid rises like a mountain crafted by divine hands, its limestone blocks catching the first pale hints of dawn. Our village houses nearly 10,000 souls during the peak construction seasons, a temporary city that rivals Memphis itself in its bustling activity. The permanent workers, like myself, live in stone-built houses with our families, while the seasonal laborers from the provinces occupy the great galleries, long barracks that can shelter hundreds of men who come to serve their pharaoh for 3 or 4 months before returning to their farms and villages along the Nile. I rise from my sleeping mat, careful not to wake my wife Nefret and our young son Amenhotep, who sleeps curled against his mother like a cat seeking warmth. The house is small but well built, with thick walls that keep out the desert heat, and a courtyard where Nefret pens her small garden of onions and garlic. These modest quarters represent a privilege earned through years of faithful service. Most workers share their living spaces with several families, privacy being a luxury few can afford. The morning ritual begins as it has for countless days before. I splash water from our precious ceramic jar over my face and hands, feeling the cool liquid wash away the dust and dreams of sleep. Water is life in this desert land, and every drop is treasured like liquid gold. The jar will be refilled today from the wells that tap into the underground streams, part of the complex system that keeps our vast community alive in this harsh environment. From the courtyard, I can see the Wall of the Crow rising in the distance, that massive limestone barrier that separates our world of the living from the sacred precinct where the pyramid grows day by day. The wall stretches for 200 meters and stands 10 meters high, a monument in itself that required the labor of hundreds of men to construct. Through its great gateway, wider than any entrance I have ever seen, flows the constant stream of workers, materials, and supplies that feed the hungry maw of construction. The scent of baking bread begins to drift through the morning air, emanating from the dozens of bakeries that ring our settlement like protective charms. These are not simple ovens, but sophisticated installations capable of producing thousands of loaves each day. Their conical bread molds arranged in precise rows that speak of careful planning and organization. The bakers have been at work since before midnight, their fires never allowed to die completely, for bread is the foundation of life and the primary payment for our labor. I dress in my working clothes, a simple linen kilt that reaches to my knees, sturdy leather sandals that protect my feet from the sharp stones, and a linen headcloth that will shield my skull from Ra's burning gaze. Around my neck hangs an amulet of Ptah, patron god of craftsmen, carved from a piece of limestone taken from the very quarry that provides stone for our great work. This small talisman connects me to the divine purpose of our labor and reminds me that we are not merely moving stones, but participating in the Pharaoh's journey to eternal life. The sounds of the village grow louder as more families begin their daily routines. Children's laughter mingles with the calls of vendors already preparing for the day's trade, while the rhythmic pounding of grain in wooden mortars provides a steady percussion that will continue until sunset. Somewhere in the distance, a priest chants the morning prayers that ensure Ma'at, divine order, will govern our work and keep us safe from the chaos that always threatens to overwhelm human endeavors. As I step into the narrow street that leads toward the central plaza, I join the growing stream of workers beginning their journey to the construction site. We move with the practiced efficiency of men who have performed this ritual countless times, each knowing his place in the great machine of construction that transforms raw stone into monuments of eternity. The air fills with quiet conversations in the various dialects of Egypt, for our workforce draws men from every nome of the kingdom, united in service to our divine Pharaoh. The eastern sky begins to lighten, painting the limestone blocks of the rising pyramid in shades of gold and rose. Soon the sun will emerge in all its glory, and the real work of the day will begin. But for now, in these precious moments between night and day, I allow myself to feel the weight of what we are creating, not just a tomb for a king, but a bridge between earth and heaven, a testament to human skill and divine will that will endure long after our names are forgotten.
Lord, let us remember the hard work of our workers' village, come alive with the organized chaos of 10,000 souls preparing for another day of sacred labor. The distribution of morning rations follows patterns as ancient and precise as the movements of the stars themselves, each worker knowing exactly where to stand, which line to join, and what portion he is entitled to receive. This daily ritual of sustenance is more than mere feeding. It is the foundation upon which our entire enterprise rests. I take my place in the line designated for skilled stonemasons, recognizable by the copper tools we carry and the limestone dust that seems permanently embedded in our skin and clothing. The hierarchy of our community reveals itself in these morning assemblies. The master builders and architects receive their portions first, followed by the skilled craftsmen like myself, then the general laborers who form the backbone of our workforce. Each group has its designated area, its specific rations, its understood place in the great order that governs our lives. The bread we receive is unlike anything produced in ordinary Egyptian households. These loaves are baked in the distinctive conical molds that archaeologists will one day call beja pots, their shape designed for efficient production and easy transport. The bread is dense and nutritious, made from emmer wheat ground fine, and mixed with dates and honey when supplies allow. Each loaf bears the mark of the bakery that produced it, a system of accountability that ensures quality and prevents theft from the communal stores. Alongside the bread comes our daily ration of beer, served in ceramic cups that we must return after drinking. This is not the weak, watery brew consumed by common farmers, but a thick, nourishing liquid that provides both hydration and essential nutrients for men engaged in back-breaking physical labor. The beer is slightly sweet, flavored with dates and herbs, and contains enough alcohol to purify water that might otherwise carry disease. In this desert environment, beer is often safer to drink than water itself. The distribution is overseen by scribes, who record every portion given, their reed pens scratching across papyrus scrolls that document the vast logistics of feeding our community. These men, with their clean linen kilts and soft hands unmarked by manual labor, represent the administrative backbone that makes our great work possible. Without their careful accounting, the complex system of supply and distribution would collapse into chaos within days. Young Amenemheb, barely 16 and serving his first season as a laborer, his eyes still hold the wonder of a farm boy seeing the Great Pyramid for the first time, though his hands are already beginning to show the calluses that mark a true builder. He comes from a village near Abydos, sent by his father to fulfill the family's obligation of corvée labor. But I can see in his eager face that he may choose to stay beyond his required service. "Master Kaimwasit," he whispers, "is it true that we eat better here than the nobles in their fine houses?" His question brings a smile to my weathered face, for it reflects a truth that still amazes me after all these years. The state ensures that pyramid workers receive rations that would be the envy of many free citizens. Meat every day, the finest bread, beer in abundance, and delicacies like dates and honey that most Egyptians taste only during festivals. The meat distribution follows the bread and beer, and here the evidence of our privileged status becomes even more apparent. Great joints of beef, mutton, and goat meat are carved by skilled butchers who know exactly how to divide each carcass to feed the maximum number of workers. The overseers and skilled craftsmen receive the choicest cuts, while the general laborers get portions that, while less tender, are still substantial enough to maintain their strength for the demanding work ahead. Archaeological evidence will one day reveal that we consume over 4,000 pounds of meat daily, an almost unimaginable quantity that speaks to the pharaoh's commitment to keeping his workforce healthy and productive. Cattle are driven here from pastures throughout the Nile Delta, their final journey ending in the great slaughtering yards south of our village, where they are processed with the efficiency of a military operation. The crew leaders begin calling out the work assignments for the day, their voices carrying across the plaza in the rhythmic chants that help organize thousands of men into manageable groups. We are divided into crews of roughly 2,000, each crew split into gangs of 1,000, with names that reflect both pride and humor: Friends of Hufu, Drunkards of Menkaure, the Boat Gang, and dozens of others that have become legendary among the workers. Each gang is further subdivided into files of about 200 men, and these into divisions of 20 workers who will labor together throughout the day. This organization is not arbitrary, but reflects generations of experience in managing large construction projects. Every man knows his place, his responsibilities, and the names of his immediate companions. In the dangerous work of pyramid building, such organization can mean the difference between life and death. The morning air fills with the sound of work songs as the crews prepare to march to the construction site. These ancient melodies serve multiple purposes. They help coordinate group movements, maintain morale during difficult tasks, and preserve the oral traditions that bind our community together. The songs tell stories of previous pharaohs, celebrate the skills of master craftsmen, and invoke the protection of the gods who watch over our dangerous work. As we finish our morning meal and prepare for the day's labor, I notice the subtle signs that mark the changing seasons of construction. The limestone dust in the air is thicker now, indicating that the quarrying operations are running at full capacity. The number of boats visible on the nearby harbor has increased, bringing fresh supplies of tools, rope, and the specialized materials needed for the pyramid's interior chambers. The sun climbs higher, painting the eastern face of the pyramid in brilliant gold, and the time for preparation draws to a close. Soon we will pass through the great gateway in the wall of the Crow and enter the sacred precinct where our true work awaits. But for now, in these final moments of community gathering, I savor the sense of belonging to something greater than myself. A brotherhood of builders creating a monument that will stand as long as the stars wheel overhead. The march to the construction site begins with the measured tread of 10,000 feet moving in unison across the packed earth pathways that connect our village to the sacred precinct. These routes have been worn smooth by countless generations of workers, their surfaces hardened by the constant passage of men, sledges, and the massive stone blocks that form the pyramid's growing mass. Each step I take follows in the footprints of those who came before, creating an unbroken chain of human effort stretching back to the pyramid's first foundation stone. The great gateway in the wall of the Crow looms before us like the entrance to another world. This massive portal, wider than any doorway I have ever seen, serves as the threshold between the realm of the living and the sacred space where we labor to ensure our pharaoh's eternal life. The gateway floor is paved with ceramic fragments that crunch softly underfoot, creating a distinctive sound that announces our passage from the mundane world of daily life into the divine sphere of monumental construction. As we pass through the gateway, the full magnitude of our undertaking reveals itself in all its overwhelming glory. The pyramid rises before us like a mountain crafted by the gods themselves. Its limestone blocks fitted together with a precision that speaks of divine inspiration guiding human hands. Even in its unfinished state, with the capstone still years away from placement, the structure dominates the landscape with an authority that makes mortal men feel small and humble. The pathways within the construction precinct follow carefully planned routes that maximize efficiency while maintaining the sacred geometry that governs every aspect of the pyramid's design. These are not random tracks worn by workers' feet, but engineered roadways designed by master architects
who understand that the movement of men and materials must flow as smoothly as the Nile itself. Stone markers at regular intervals indicate distances and directions, while wooden posts mark the locations of ramps, supply depots, and workstations. Young Amenemheb walks beside me, his eyes wide with wonder at the organized chaos surrounding us. Everywhere we look, teams of workers are engaged in the countless tasks that pyramid construction requires. Stonecutters shape blocks with copper chisels, their rhythmic hammering creating a percussion that echoes off the pyramid's faces. Rope makers twist fibers into the strong lines needed to move massive weights, while tool makers sharpen and repair the implements that make all other work possible. The ramp system that allows us to move blocks to ever greater heights represents one of the most ingenious aspects of our construction methods. These are not simple inclined planes, but sophisticated structures that spiral around the pyramid's growing mass, their gradients carefully calculated to allow teams of men to haul multi-ton blocks without exceeding human capabilities. The ramps themselves require constant maintenance and modification as the pyramid grows, creating a secondary construction project that employs hundreds of workers. Water carriers move constantly along the pathways, their ceramic jars providing the precious liquid that keeps our workforce functioning in the desert heat. These men, often boys too young for heavy labor, perform a service as vital as any stone cutting or block hauling. Without adequate water, the entire construction effort would collapse within hours, making these humble water bearers as essential to our success as the master architects who design the pyramid's chambers. The sound of our passage mingles with the countless other noises of construction. The scrape of copper against stone, the creak of wooden levers, the shouts of foremen directing their crews, and the rhythmic chanting that helps coordinate group efforts. This symphony of human industry has become the soundtrack of my life, as familiar and comforting as the sound of wind through papyrus reeds or waves lapping against the Nile's banks. The organization of work crews becomes more apparent as we approach our assigned areas. Each team has its designated section of the pyramid, its specific tasks, and its established routines developed through months or years of working together. The men in my crew know each other's strengths and weaknesses, can anticipate each other's movements, and work together with the fluid coordination of a well-trained military unit. The tools we carry represent the accumulated wisdom of generations of Egyptian craftsmen. My copper chisel, worn smooth by countless hours of use, fits my hand like an extension of my own body. The wooden mallet that drives it bears the marks of years of faithful service, its handle polished by the grip of my calloused palms. These simple implements, when wielded by skilled hands, can shape stone with a precision that will amaze future generations. The limestone blocks we work with come from quarries located across the Nile, their journey to the construction site representing a logistical achievement as impressive as the pyramid itself. Each block has been carefully selected for its quality, cut to approximate dimensions at the quarry, and transported by boat during the annual flood, when the Nile runs high enough to bring vessels close to the construction site. The final shaping and fitting of these blocks requires the skills that have taken me years to master. As we reach our work area, I can see the evidence of yesterday's progress in the newly placed blocks that extend the pyramid's mass ever upward. Each stone represents hours of careful labor, quarrying, transporting, shaping, and finally positioning with the mathematical precision that ensures the pyramid's perfect geometry. The satisfaction of seeing our collective efforts take permanent form never grows old, no matter how many blocks I have helped to place. The morning sun climbs higher, its rays beginning to heat the limestone surfaces that will soon become too hot to touch with bare hands. The rhythm of work is about to begin in earnest, but for now, in these final moments of preparation, I allow myself to appreciate the magnitude of what we are creating. This is not merely a tomb for a king, but a testament to human capability, a bridge between earth and heaven that will endure long after our civilization has passed into memory. The foreman's call echoes across the worksite, signaling the official beginning of another day's labor. Around me, thousands of men take up their tools and assume their positions, ready to continue the sacred work that has consumed our lives and will define our legacy for all eternity.
The quarry face stretches before us like a wall of golden limestone, its surface marked by the geometric patterns left by countless copper chisels wielded by skilled hands. This is where the pyramid truly begins, not in the grand placement of finished blocks, but in the patient, methodical work of separating stone from the living rock that has slept beneath the desert for millions of years. The sound of metal against stone creates a rhythm as ancient Egypt itself, a percussion that speaks of human determination challenging the permanence of the earth. My crew of 20 men works in perfect coordination, each knowing his role in the complex dance of stone extraction. The process begins with the master quarryman, Seneb, whose experienced eye can read the limestone's grain like a scribe reads hieroglyphs. He marks the boundaries of each block with charcoal, indicating where we must cut to achieve the precise dimensions required by the pyramid's design. These marks are not arbitrary, but follow the natural fracture lines in the stone, working with the rock's inherent structure rather than against it. The cutting begins with the careful placement of copper chisels along the marked lines. These tools, forged in the workshops of Memphis by master smiths, represent the finest metallurgy available to our civilization. The copper is alloyed with small amounts of arsenic and tin, creating a metal harder than pure copper, yet still soft enough to be resharpened when dulled by contact with limestone. Each chisel is a precious tool, carefully maintained and jealously guarded by its user. Young Amenemheb watches intently as I demonstrate the proper technique for driving a chisel into stone. The motion must be precise and controlled. Too light a blow accomplishes nothing, while too heavy a strike can shatter the chisel or create unwanted fractures in the stone. The wooden mallet I use has been shaped specifically for this work, its weight and balance perfected through years of use. The handle, worn smooth by countless grips, seems to guide my hand to the proper angle and force. The limestone responds to our efforts with a distinctive sound, a sharp crack when the chisel bites properly, a dull thud when the angle is wrong, a ringing note when the metal strikes a particularly hard inclusion in the stone.
These sounds become a language that experienced quarrymen learn to read, telling us when to adjust our technique, when to move to a different section, when a block is ready to be separated from its parent rock. The work is methodical and meditative, requiring intense concentration, yet allowing the mind to wander during the repetitive motions. As I work, I think of the pyramid growing block by block, each piece of stone we extract becoming part of a structure that will outlast kingdoms and dynasties. The limestone beneath my chisel may one day form part of the pharaoh's burial chamber, or perhaps a section of the grand gallery where future priests will perform the rituals that ensure Khufu's eternal life. Water plays a crucial role in our quarrying operations, though not in ways that casual observers might expect. We pour water into the cuts we make, not to soften the stone, but to reveal hairline cracks that might fail during transport or placement. The water also helps to wash away the limestone dust that would otherwise blind us and clog our lungs, though despite our precautions, all quarrymen eventually develop the persistent cough that marks our profession. The extraction of a single block requires the coordinated effort of the entire crew. Once the cutting is complete, we must separate the stone from the quarry face using wooden wedges driven into carefully prepared slots. These wedges, made from the hardest wood available, usually imported cedar from the mountains of Lebanon, are soaked in water to make them swell, creating tremendous pressure that can split even the most stubborn stone along predetermined lines. The moment of separation is always dramatic, accompanied by a sharp crack that echoes across the quarry as tons of limestone suddenly break free from the rock that has held them since the world was young. The newly exposed surfaces gleam white and fresh, unmarked by the weathering that has darkened the quarry face. These pristine surfaces will soon be shaped and fitted with the precision that makes Egyptian masonry the wonder of the ancient world. Moving the extracted blocks from the quarry face to the transport area requires techniques as sophisticated as the cutting itself. We use wooden levers, copper shod and carefully positioned, to shift blocks weighing several tons with surprising ease. The principle of leverage, understood by Egyptian engineers for generations, allows a few men to move weights that would otherwise require dozens of workers. The positioning of fulcrums and the coordination of multiple levers demands the same precision as the cutting itself. The quality control exercised over quarried blocks is rigorous and unforgiving. Master masons examine each piece for flaws that might compromise the pyramid's structural integrity or geometric perfection. Blocks with significant cracks, inclusions of foreign material, or irregular grain patterns are rejected for use in the pyramid itself, though they may find employment in less critical applications, such as ramp construction or worker housing. The rejected stones tell their own stories of the standards we maintain. A block that would be considered perfect for ordinary construction might be discarded if it shows the slightest deviation from the required dimensions or contains a fossil that could create a weak point. This attention to quality means that only the finest limestone reaches the pyramid, ensuring that our monument will endure for millennia without structural failure. As the morning progresses and Ra's heat begins to make the limestone surfaces uncomfortably warm to touch, we adjust our working methods to accommodate the changing conditions.
the stone becomes more difficult to cut as it expands in the heat, and the metal tools grow hot enough to burn unwary hands. We learn to work in the shadows when possible, and to pour water on our chisels to keep them at manageable temperatures. The rhythm of quarrying creates its own meditation, a repetitive cycle of marking, cutting, and extraction that connects us to the eternal processes of creation and destruction that govern the universe. In separating stone from stone, we participate in the same forces that shaped the mountains and carved the Nile's channel, becoming partners with the gods in the ongoing work of bringing order from chaos.
The moment arrives when human muscle must challenge the weight of eternity itself. Before us lies a limestone block weighing nearly 3 tons. Its surface is shaped to perfection by the quarryman's chisels, waiting to be transported from the cutting area to its destined place in the pyramid's growing mass. This is where the true test of our strength and ingenuity begins, where the theoretical becomes brutally physical, and where the margin between success and catastrophe can be measured in the thickness of a rope fiber. The sledge that will carry our block has been constructed by master carpenters using techniques refined over generations of pyramid building. Made from the strongest cedar wood available, reinforced with copper fittings and bound with leather straps, it represents a marvel of engineering, designed to distribute enormous weight across wooden runners that will slide over prepared surfaces. The sledge itself weighs nearly as much as a small boat, yet it must be strong enough to carry loads that would crush ordinary construction. Preparing the block for transport requires the coordinated effort of our entire 20-man crew, each member knowing his precise role in the complex choreography of moving massive weights. We begin by positioning wooden levers beneath the stone, using the principle of mechanical advantage that allows human strength to overcome seemingly impossible obstacles. The fulcrum points must be calculated with mathematical precision. Too close to the load and we gain no advantage. Too far away and the levers break under the strain. The ropes we use are marvels of Egyptian rope-making technology, twisted from the finest flax fibers and treated with oils that prevent rot and increase flexibility. Each rope is as thick as a man's wrist and strong enough to support the weight of several oxen, yet flexible enough to be knotted and manipulated by human hands. The rope makers who create these essential tools are craftsmen as skilled as any stone carver, their products literally holding our entire enterprise together. Young Amenemheb takes his position at one of the hauling ropes, his face showing the mixture of excitement and apprehension that marks a worker's first experience with moving pyramid blocks. I remember my own first time, the shock of feeling the rope come alive in my hands as 20 men coordinated their strength against the immovable weight of stone. The rope burns that marked my palms for weeks afterward became badges of honor, proof that I had joined the brotherhood of pyramid builders. The technique of moving massive blocks requires more than brute strength. It demands timing, coordination, and an almost mystical understanding of how human effort can be multiplied through proper technique. We do not simply pull against the weight, but work in rhythmic surges, using our collective momentum to overcome the stone's inertia. The work songs that accompany our efforts are not mere entertainment, but essential tools that synchronize our movements and maintain the rhythm necessary for success. The prepared pathway along which we will move the block represents another marvel of Egyptian engineering. The surface has been carefully leveled and covered with wooden planks that distribute the sledge's weight and reduce friction. Water is poured on these planks not to make them slippery as some might assume, but to prevent the wood from splintering under the enormous pressure. The pathway curves gently to follow the natural contours of the terrain, avoiding steep grades that would make our task impossible.
The first pull is always the most difficult, requiring us to overcome the static friction that holds the sledge motionless. 20 men lean into their ropes, muscles straining against leather harnesses that distribute the load across our shoulders and chests. The moment when the sledge begins to move is magical. Tons of limestone suddenly yielding to human will, sliding forward with a grinding sound that speaks of victory over the fundamental forces of nature. Once in motion, the block becomes slightly easier to move, though maintaining momentum requires constant vigilance and coordination. The sledge must be kept perfectly aligned with the pathway, any deviation threatening to send it careening off course or becoming wedged against obstacles. Rope handlers on either side use smaller lines to guide the sledge's direction, while others clear debris from the path ahead and ensure that the wooden planks remain properly positioned. The physical demands of block hauling push human endurance to its absolute limits. The leather harnesses cut into our shoulders despite their careful padding, while the constant strain of pulling against massive weight creates a burning sensation in muscles that will ache for days afterward. Sweat pours from our bodies despite the early morning hour, and the limestone dust kicked up by our passage coats our skin and clogs our throats. Rest stops are carefully timed and strategically positioned along the transport route. These brief respites allow us to catch our breath, adjust our equipment, and consume the water that prevents collapse from heat exhaustion. The water carriers who service these stops are as essential to our success as the rope makers and sledge builders, their ceramic jars providing the liquid that keeps human machinery functioning in the desert environment. The ramp system that allows us to move blocks to the pyramid's upper levels represents perhaps the most ingenious aspect of our construction methods. These are not simple inclined planes, but sophisticated structures that spiral around the pyramid's growing mass, their gradients carefully calculated to remain within human capabilities even when hauling multi-ton loads. The ramps themselves require constant maintenance and modification as the pyramid grows, creating a secondary construction project that employs hundreds of workers. As we approach the base of the current ramp, the true magnitude of our undertaking becomes apparent. The incline stretches upward at an angle that seems impossibly steep from moving such massive weights. Yet generations of experience have proven that human determination can overcome even this challenge. The ramp's surface is reinforced with additional planking and provided with rope guides that help maintain proper alignment during the ascent. The ascent itself requires modifications to our hauling technique, with additional crews positioned at intervals along the ramp to assist when the grade becomes too steep for the primary hauling team. These support crews use their own ropes and levers to help push the sledge upward, their efforts coordinated by foremen who understand the complex dynamics of moving massive weights up inclined surfaces. Perhaps there is no greater satisfaction than the moment when a perfectly cut block slides into its destined position in the pyramid structure, fitting with the precision that will ensure the monument's eternal stability. The sun reaches its merciless zenith, transforming the limestone surfaces of the pyramid into furnaces that no human flesh can touch without burning.
Ra's chariot blazes directly overhead, casting shadows so short they seem to disappear entirely, leaving us exposed to the full fury of the desert heat. This is the time when even the strongest workers must seek refuge, when the rhythm of construction yields to the greater rhythm of survival in Egypt's unforgiving climate. The call for midday rest echoes across the construction site, carried by the voices of foremen who understand that pushing men beyond their limits serves no one, not the workers, not the pharaoh, not the eternal purpose we serve. The sound brings visible relief to faces streaked with limestone dust and darkened by the sun's relentless assault. Tools are set aside with the reverence due to precious implements, while hands that have gripped rope and chisel for hours finally relax their desperate hold. We seek shelter wherever it can be found, in the shadows cast by completed sections of the pyramid, beneath temporary awnings stretched between wooden posts, or in the blessed coolness of the underground chambers that honeycomb the construction site. These refuges become temporary communities where the rigid hierarchy of work crews dissolves into the more fundamental brotherhood of men sharing the same struggle against heat and exhaustion. The water distribution during rest periods follows protocols as strict as any religious ceremony. Each man receives his measured portion in ceramic cups that have been kept cool in underground storage areas, the liquid precious beyond gold in this moment of desperate need. The water tastes of the clay vessels that hold it, flavored with herbs that the medical priests claim prevent the stomach ailments that can fell a worker as surely as any accident with stone or rope. Young Amenemheb collapses beside me in the shade of a supply depot, his chest heaving as he struggles to catch his breath. The morning's work has pushed him to his limits, and I can see in his eyes the dawning realization of what pyramid building truly demands of human flesh and spirit. His hands shake slightly as he raises the water cup to his lips, and I remember my own first encounters with the brutal reality of construction work. "Master Khaem Waset," he gasps between sips, "how do you endure this day after day, season after season?" His question touches something deep in my soul, for it speaks to the mystery that even I do not fully understand. What drives men to continue this backbreaking labor? What sustains us through the endless cycle of heat and exhaustion, pain and small victories that defines our existence here? The food that accompanies our midday rest is carefully chosen for its ability to sustain workers in extreme conditions. Bread baked in the early morning hours, when the oven's heat was welcome rather than unbearable, provides the foundation of our meal. The loaves are dense with grain and dates, designed to release energy slowly throughout the afternoon's work. Dried fish, preserved in salt and spices, offers the protein our muscles desperately need to repair the damage inflicted by morning's labors. The medical attendants move among us during these rest periods, their trained eyes searching for signs of heat exhaustion, dehydration, or the countless injuries that pyramid construction inflicts on human bodies. These men, trained in the healing arts at the temples of Ptah and Thoth, carry pouches filled with herbs and ointments that can mean the difference between a worker returning to his duties or being carried away on a stretcher. I watch as one of these healers examines a rope handler whose palms have been torn raw by the morning's hauling work. The treatment is swift and efficient. The wounds cleaned with water mixed with honey, then bandaged with linen strips that will protect the damaged skin while allowing the man to continue working. Such injuries are so common that treating them has become routine, yet each represents a small sacrifice offered to the great work we serve. The conversations during rest periods reveal the human side of our monumental undertaking. Men speak of families left behind in distant villages, of children who will be grown before their fathers return from pyramid service, of wives managing farms and households alone while their husbands labor for the pharaoh's eternal glory. These personal stories remind us that we are not merely anonymous workers, but individuals with hopes, fears, and responsibilities that extend far beyond the construction site. Seneb, the master quarryman, shares tales of previous pyramid projects, his weathered voice carrying the authority of decades spent in service to Egypt's god-kings. He speaks of the Pyramid of Djoser, where he learned his craft as a young apprentice, and of the innovations in construction technique that each new project brings. His stories connect us to the long tradition of pyramid building, making us part of a brotherhood that spans generations. The shade we shelter in provides more than physical relief. It offers a space for the mind to process the morning's experiences and prepare for the afternoon's challenges. The constant noise of construction fades to a distant murmur, replaced by the quieter sounds of men at rest. Quiet conversations, the scrape of sandals on stone, the gentle splash of water being poured from jars into waiting cups. As the sun begins its slow descent from the zenith, the limestone surfaces start their gradual cooling, though they will remain uncomfortably hot for hours yet. The foremen begin to stir, checking the position of shadows and consulting the water clocks that help them gauge the passage of time. Soon the call will come to resume work, but for now we exist in this blessed interval between the morning's exhaustion and the afternoon's renewed struggle. The rest period also serves practical purposes beyond mere recovery. Tools are inspected and repaired, ropes checked for signs of wear that could lead to catastrophic failure, and work assignments adjusted based on the morning's progress and any problems that have emerged. The master builders use this time to consult their plans and make the countless small decisions that keep the construction moving forward according to the divine geometry that governs the pyramid's design. Perhaps most importantly, these moments of rest allow us to remember why we endure such hardships. In the relative quiet, with the pyramid's mass rising before us like a mountain crafted by divine hands, we can feel the weight of our purpose. Not just building a tomb for a king, but creating a bridge between earth and heaven that will ensure Egypt's prosperity for all eternity. The afternoon brings with it the most delicate and demanding work of our entire enterprise, the precision fitting and placement of blocks that will form the pyramid's inner chambers and passages. This is where the rough strength of quarrying and hauling gives way to the refined skills of master craftsmen, where measurements must be exact to the width of a reed, and where a single mistake can compromise the structural integrity of the entire monument. I am privileged to work alongside Hemiunu, the master architect whose genius guides every aspect of the pyramid's construction. His hands, though soft compared to those of us who handle stone daily, possess an almost supernatural ability to judge angles and proportions with mathematical precision. When he runs his fingers along a block's surface, he can detect variations invisible to ordinary eyes, imperfections that must be corrected before the stone can take its place in the eternal structure. The tools required for precision work differ markedly from those used in quarrying and rough shaping. My finest copper chisels, their edges honed to razor sharpness, can remove stone in shavings thin as papyrus. The wooden mallets I use for this delicate work are smaller and lighter than those employed for heavy cutting, their strikes controlled with the precision of a scribe's pen strokes. Each tool has been crafted specifically for its purpose, representing generations of accumulated knowledge about working stone to impossible standards of accuracy. The measuring instruments that guide our precision work are marvels of Egyptian engineering and mathematics. Wooden squares ensure that corners meet at perfect right angles, while plumb lines guarantee that vertical surfaces remain true despite the enormous weights they must support. The cubit rods, marked with divisions smaller than a fingernail's width, allow us to achieve the dimensional accuracy that makes Egyptian masonry the wonder of the ancient world. Young Amenemheb watches in fascination as I demonstrate the technique for achieving a perfectly smooth surface on a limestone block. The process requires patience and skill in equal measure. Too aggressive an approach leaves tool marks that compromise the stone's appearance, while too gentle a touch fails to remove the irregularities that prevent proper fitting. The rhythm of precision work is entirely different from the powerful strokes of quarrying, requiring a delicate touch that takes years to master. The fitting of blocks destined for the pyramid's interior chambers demands accuracy that borders on the miraculous. These stones must align with mathematical precision to create the passages and rooms where the pharaoh's eternal journey will begin. The tolerances we work to are so tight that a properly fitted joint appears as a hairline crack, the stones seeming to merge into a single piece of rock despite weighing tons individually. The acoustic properties of the chambers we create add another layer of complexity to our work. The master architects understand that sound behaves differently in enclosed spaces, and they design the pyramid's interior with careful attention to how voices and ritual chants will resonate within the stone walls. This knowledge influences the shape and dimensions of every chamber, requiring us to work to specifications that serve purposes beyond mere structural necessity. The granite blocks used in the most sacred areas of the pyramid present unique challenges that test even the most experienced craftsmen. This stone, quarried far to the south at Aswan and transported down the Nile at enormous expense, is far harder than limestone and requires different techniques and tools. The copper chisels that work so well on limestone are quickly dulled by granite's crystalline structure, forcing us to use harder bronze tools and more patient methods. We pray for the process of moving precision-fitted blocks into their final positions requires techniques as sophisticated as their preparation. We use wooden rollers, copper-shod levers, and carefully calculated fulcrum points to shift multi-ton stones with movements measured in finger widths. The margin for error is virtually non-existent. A block damaged during placement cannot simply be replaced, but must be painstakingly repaired or, in extreme cases, completely recut. The master builders who oversee precision work possess knowledge that borders on the mystical. They understand the hidden mathematics that govern the pyramid's proportions,
the sacred geometry that connects earthly construction to cosmic principles. Their instructions often seem to make little sense to ordinary workers, yet following them precisely results in structures of breathtaking beauty and perfect functionality. The quality control exercised over precision work is absolute and unforgiving. Every surface is checked with straight edges, every angle verified with squares, every dimension confirmed with measuring rods. Blocks that would be considered perfect for ordinary construction are rejected if they show the slightest deviation from the required specifications. This attention to detail ensures that the pyramid will stand for millennia without structural failure or geometric distortion. The collaboration between different crafts becomes most apparent during precision work. Stonemasons work alongside carpenters who create the wooden forms and guides that ensure perfect alignment. Rope makers provide the specialized cordage needed for delicate lifting operations, while metal workers maintain and sharpen the tools that make precision cutting possible. Each craft contributes its expertise to the common goal of achieving perfection in stone. The psychological demands of precision work are as challenging as the physical requirements. The constant attention to minute details, the pressure of knowing that mistakes cannot be easily corrected, and the responsibility for maintaining standards that will be judged by future generations create a mental strain that few occupations can match. Yet there is also deep satisfaction in seeing perfectly fitted stones come together to create chambers of stunning beauty and mathematical perfection. As the afternoon progresses and the sun begins its descent toward the western horizon, the quality of light changes in ways that affect our precision work. The harsh glare of midday gives way to softer illumination that reveals surface textures and joint lines with greater clarity. Many master craftsmen prefer to do their finest work during these hours when the light enhances rather than obscures the subtle details that mark the difference between good work and perfection. The tools of precision work require constant maintenance and care. Chisels must be resharpened frequently to maintain their cutting edges, while measuring instruments must be checked regularly for accuracy and protected from damage that could compromise their reliability. The time spent maintaining tools is not separate from the work itself, but an integral part of the process that ensures consistent quality. Perhaps there is no greater satisfaction than the moment when a perfectly prepared block slides into its destined position with the soft whisper of stone meeting stone, fitting so precisely that the joint becomes nearly invisible, creating the illusion that the entire structure was carved from a single piece of rock. The sun begins its descent toward the western horizon, painting the limestone faces of the pyramid in shades of gold and amber that transform our monument from a construction site into a vision of divine beauty. The harsh shadows of midday soften into gentler patterns that reveal the true artistry of our work, the precise joints between blocks, the mathematical perfection of angles and proportions, the subtle curves that will guide the pharaoh's soul toward eternal life among the stars. The call to end the day's labor comes not from any human voice, but from the natural rhythm of light and shadow that has governed Egyptian life since the beginning of time. As Ra's chariot approaches the western mountains, where the god will begin his nightly journey through the underworld,
we know that our own daily journey of labor must draw to its close. The tools that have been extensions of our bodies throughout the long day are cleaned and carefully stored, each implement precious and irreplaceable. The procession back to our village follows the same pathways we traveled in the morning darkness, but everything has changed in the intervening hours. Where we walked in anticipation of the day's challenges, we now move with the measured pace of men who have given their strength to a purpose greater than themselves. The limestone dust that coats our skin and clothing marks us as participants in the sacred work of pyramid building, badges of honor that connect us to the eternal. Young Amenemheb walks beside me with the slightly unsteady gait of someone whose muscles have been pushed beyond their normal limits. His hands, soft when he arrived from his village near Abydos, now show the beginnings of the calluses that mark a true builder. The transformation is more than physical. There is something different in his eyes, a depth that comes from understanding what human will can accomplish when directed toward a worthy goal. The great gateway in the wall of the Crow welcomes us back to the world of the living, its massive portal serving as a threshold between the sacred precinct where we labor and the human community where we rest and recover. The ceramic fragments that pave the gateway floor crunch beneath our feet with a sound that has become as familiar as our own heartbeats, announcing our return from another day's service to the Pharaoh's eternal glory. The workers' village comes alive with the sounds and scents of evening as 10,000 souls settle into the routines that mark the end of each working day. Cooking fires begin to flicker in courtyards and common areas, their smoke carrying the aromas of bread baking and meat roasting. The day's rations are supplemented by whatever additional food families can afford or produce in their small gardens, creating meals that provide both physical nourishment and emotional comfort. The communal washing areas become centers of social activity as workers clean away the day's accumulation of limestone dust and sweat. The water, precious as liquid gold in this desert environment, is used sparingly but thoroughly, each man taking his turn at the stone basins that serve our community. The simple act of washing becomes a ritual of transition, marking the boundary between the day's labor and the evening's rest.
The medical attendants who serve our community work busiest during these evening hours, treating the injuries and ailments that are inevitable consequences of pyramid construction. Their workshops, equipped with herbs and instruments that represent the finest Egyptian medical knowledge, become refuges for workers whose bodies have been pushed beyond their limits. The treatments they provide, salves for rope burns, splints for strained joints, potions for the persistent cough that affects all who work with stone, are as essential to our enterprise as the tools and techniques of construction itself. The evening meal brings together workers from all levels of the construction hierarchy, creating a temporary democracy of shared exhaustion and common purpose. Master craftsmen sit beside common laborers, their conversations ranging from technical discussions of construction techniques to personal stories of families and homes left behind in distant villages. These moments of fellowship help bind our diverse community together, creating bonds that transcend the formal structures of work crews and administrative divisions. The bread served at evening meals is different from the dense, nutritious loaves distributed as morning rations. These evening portions are lighter and more flavorful, often supplemented with honey or dates when supplies allow. The beer that accompanies the meal is also of higher quality, brewed with additional care and flavored with herbs that aid digestion and promote restful sleep. These small luxuries represent the state's recognition that workers who give their strength to pyramid building deserve more than mere subsistence. The storytellers who emerge during evening gatherings serve a purpose as important as any craftsman or laborer. Their tales of previous pharaohs, legendary builders, and the gods who watch over our work help maintain the spiritual dimension of our enterprise. Through their words, we remember that we are not merely moving stones, but participating in the cosmic order that ensures Egypt's eternal prosperity and the pharaoh's successful journey to the afterlife. The children who live in our community, sons and daughters of permanent workers, too young for heavy labor but old enough to understand the importance of our work, gather around these storytellers with wide eyes and eager attention. In their faces, I see the future of pyramid building, the next generation who will carry forward the knowledge and traditions that make our achievements possible. As full darkness settles over the village, the sounds of construction fade into memory, replaced by the gentler noises of domestic life. Families gather in their small courtyards, sharing the day's experiences and planning for tomorrow's challenges. The conversations are quiet and intimate, creating pockets of privacy within our crowded community where personal relationships can flourish despite the demanding nature of our work. The night shift workers begin to stir as the day shift settles into rest, creating a continuous cycle of labor that ensures the pyramid's construction never truly stops. These men who will work by torchlight and moonbeam face different challenges than those who labor under Ra's burning gaze, but their contribution to the great work is no less essential. The satisfaction that comes with completing another day's service to the pharaoh's eternal glory is deeper than mere physical tiredness. It is the contentment of knowing that our efforts have added to something that will endure long after our names are forgotten, that we have played our part in creating a bridge between earth and heaven that will serve Egypt for all eternity. The evening hours transform our workers' village into a different world entirely, one where the rigid hierarchies of construction give way to the gentler rhythms of family life and community fellowship. The narrow streets that echo with marching feet during the morning departure now fill with the softer sounds of children playing, women preparing meals, and men sharing the day's experiences with neighbors who understand the unique challenges of pyramid building. My wife Nefret greets me at the entrance to our small courtyard, her eyes searching my face for signs of injury or excessive fatigue. After years of marriage to a pyramid builder, she has learned to read the subtle indicators that distinguish ordinary tiredness from the deeper exhaustion that signals a man has been pushed beyond his limits. Her gentle touch as she helps me remove my dust-covered work clothes carries all the tenderness of a woman who knows the price her husband pays in service to the pharaoh's eternal glory. Our son Amenhotep, now 7 years old and beginning to show interest in his father's craft, bombards me with questions about the day's work. His young mind struggles to comprehend the scale of what we are creating, but his enthusiasm for the technical details of stone cutting and block placement reveals an aptitude that may one day make him a master builder himself. I answer his questions patiently, remembering my own childhood fascination with the craftsmen who shaped stone into objects of beauty and utility. The evening meal in our household, like those throughout the village, becomes a ceremony of restoration and renewal. Nefret has supplemented our official rations with vegetables from her small garden, onions and garlic that add flavor to the bread, herbs that aid digestion and promote healing. The simple act of eating food prepared by loving hands in the privacy of our own courtyard provides a psychological nourishment as important as the physical sustenance our bodies require. The medical needs of our community become most apparent during these evening hours when the adrenaline of work no longer masks the day's accumulated injuries and strains. The healers who serve our village are skilled practitioners trained in the medical traditions of the great temples, their knowledge encompassing both the practical treatment of physical ailments and the spiritual dimensions of healing that Egyptian medicine recognizes as equally important. I watch as Keti, one of our most experienced healers, examines a rope handler whose shoulder has been wrenched during the afternoon's block hauling. The treatment combines practical measures, manipulation to restore proper joint alignment, application of heated oils to reduce inflammation, with ritual elements that invoke the healing power of the gods. The patient's recovery will depend as much on his faith in the treatment as on its physical effectiveness. The children of our community represent both our greatest joy and our deepest concern. Those born in the workers' village know no other life than the rhythm of pyramid construction, their days marked by the sounds of chisels against stone and the sight of the great monument growing ever higher. Yet they also face uncertainties that children in ordinary Egyptian villages never encounter. The possibility that their fathers might be injured or killed in construction accidents. The knowledge that their entire world depends on the continuation of a single massive project. The women of our community bear burdens that are often invisible to casual observers, but essential to our enterprise's success. They maintain households under conditions that would challenge the most resourceful homemaker, managing limited resources and cramped living spaces, while their husbands devote their strength to pyramid building. Their skills in food preparation, textile production, and childcare create the domestic foundation that makes our work possible. The evening workshops where craftsmen repair and maintain their tools become centers of technical education, where knowledge passes from master to apprentice through demonstration and practice. Young men like Amenemheb gather around experienced workers, watching intently as copper chisels are resharpened, wooden handles replaced, and measuring instruments calibrated. These informal schools preserve and transmit the accumulated wisdom of generations of Egyptian craftsmen. The social hierarchies that govern our working lives become more fluid during evening hours, though they never disappear entirely. Master builders and common laborers may share the same washing facilities and eat similar food, but subtle differences in housing quality, clothing, and personal possessions mark the distinctions that Egyptian society maintains even within our relatively egalitarian community. The religious observances that punctuate our evening routines serve multiple purposes beyond their obvious spiritual functions. The prayers offered to Ptah, patron god of craftsmen, help maintain our connection to the divine purpose that gives meaning to our labor.
The rituals performed to ensure Ma'at, cosmic order, remind us that our work serves purposes greater than mere construction, contributing to the universal harmony that keeps chaos at bay. The storytelling traditions that flourish during evening gatherings preserve not only entertainment, but essential cultural knowledge. The tales of previous pyramid projects, legendary builders, and the gods who watch over construction work carry practical information about techniques and procedures alongside their mythological content. Through these stories, we learn from the experiences of those who came before us and prepare for challenges we have yet to face. The night markets that emerge in the village's central areas provide opportunities for workers to supplement their official rations with additional food, tools, and personal items. These informal economies, tolerated by the authorities who recognize their importance to community morale, create networks of exchange and mutual support that strengthen the bonds holding our diverse population together. The evening hours also bring opportunities for personal reflection and spiritual contemplation that the day's demanding labor rarely allows. In the quiet of our small courtyards, with the pyramid's mass visible against the star-filled sky, we can contemplate the magnitude of what we are creating and our individual roles in this cosmic enterprise. These moments of solitude and reflection help maintain the sense of purpose that sustains us through the physical and emotional challenges of pyramid building. As the night deepens and the village settles into the quieter rhythms of rest and recovery, the sounds of construction fade into memory, replaced by the gentler noises of domestic life, quiet conversations between spouses, children's laughter, the soft scrape of sandals on packed earth. These human sounds remind us that despite the monumental nature of our work, we remain fundamentally people with the same needs for love, companionship, and belonging that have always characterized human communities.
As the village settles into the deeper rhythms of night, a different kind of work begins. The sacred labor that continues under starlight and torch flame, guided by the eternal geometry that governs the pyramid's construction. The night shift workers emerge from their daytime rest like shadows given substance, their movements deliberate and purposeful as they prepare to take up the tasks that cannot wait for Ra's return. These men work in a world transformed by darkness, where familiar landmarks disappear, and the pyramid becomes a looming presence defined more by touch and sound than sight. The torches that illuminate the night work cast dancing shadows across the limestone surfaces, creating an otherworldly atmosphere that seems more suited to religious ceremony than construction. These flames, fed by oil pressed from olives and sesame seeds, burn with a steady light that reveals the immediate work area while leaving the greater construction site shrouded in mystery. The interplay of light and shadow transforms even routine tasks into something approaching ritual, reminding us that we labor not merely in service to a mortal king, but in pursuit of eternal purposes. Kaim Heset, the master of night operations, moves through the work areas with the confidence of a man who has learned to read stone by touch and judge angles by the feel of shadows. His weathered hands, scarred by decades of working with copper tools and limestone blocks, possess an almost supernatural sensitivity that allows him to detect flaws invisible to daylight inspection.
Under his guidance, the night crews perform the most delicate work of pyramid construction, the final fitting and adjustment of blocks that must achieve mathematical perfection. The acoustic properties of the pyramid take on new significance during night work, when the absence of daylight forces workers to rely more heavily on sound to judge their progress. The ring of chisel against stone carries different meanings in the darkness. A clear, sharp note indicates proper cutting technique, while a dull thud suggests that the tool has struck at the wrong angle or encountered an unexpected flaw in the limestone. These subtle audio cues become a language that experienced night workers learn to interpret with remarkable precision. The young apprentices who work the night shift face challenges unknown to their daylight counterparts. Learning to judge distances and proportions by torchlight requires developing new senses and instincts, while the psychological pressure of working in darkness tests their courage and commitment to the craft. Yet those who master night work often become the most skilled craftsmen, their abilities honed by the demanding conditions that eliminate all but the most dedicated workers. The spiritual dimensions of pyramid construction become more apparent during the night hours, when the boundary between earthly labor and cosmic purpose seems thinner and more permeable. The priests who oversee the religious aspects of our work conduct their most important ceremonies under cover of darkness, their chanted prayers and ritual offerings creating an atmosphere of sacred purpose that infuses even the most mundane construction tasks with deeper meaning.
The tools used for night work require special adaptations to function effectively in limited light conditions. Measuring rods are marked with notches that can be felt rather than seen, while chisels are selected as much for their distinctive sound when striking stone as for their cutting ability. The wooden mallets used by night workers are often slightly heavier than their daylight counterparts, their increased mass helping to ensure accurate strikes even when visibility is limited. The organization of night crews follows different principles than daylight operations, with smaller teams working in closer coordination to compensate for the challenges imposed by darkness. Communication becomes more important when visual cues are limited, requiring workers to develop enhanced verbal and tactile methods of coordination. The work songs that accompany night labor serve not only to maintain rhythm and morale, but also to help workers locate each other in the darkness and coordinate their movements. The quality control exercised over night work is even more rigorous than daylight standards, since errors made in darkness are often more difficult to detect and correct. Master inspectors use specialized techniques to examine work completed under torchlight, their experienced hands capable of detecting minute variations in surface texture and joint alignment that might escape visual inspection. This attention to detail ensures that the pyramid's construction maintains its exacting standards regardless of the conditions under which the work is performed. The medical challenges faced by night workers differ significantly from those encountered during daylight hours. The cooler temperatures reduce the risk of heat exhaustion, but increase the likelihood of muscle strains and joint injuries as bodies work without the warming effect of Ra's rays. The healers who serve the night shift carry different remedies and employ different techniques, their treatments adapted to the unique conditions of darkness construction.
The psychological demands of night work tests workers in ways that daylight labor cannot match. The isolation imposed by limited visibility, the eerie atmosphere created by flickering torchlight, and the constant awareness of working on a structure dedicated to death and eternal life combine to create mental pressures that only the strongest personalities can endure. Yet those who thrive in these conditions often develop an almost mystical connection to the pyramid and its cosmic purposes. The astronomical observations that guide the pyramid's precise orientation require the darkness of night to achieve their full accuracy. The master astronomers who determine the monument's alignment with celestial bodies work exclusively during the hours when stars are visible, their calculations forming the mathematical foundation upon which all other construction depends. These learned men, trained in the temple schools of Heliopolis and Memphis, represent the intersection of practical construction knowledge and cosmic wisdom. The night shift also includes the guardians who protect the construction site from theft and vandalism, their vigilance ensuring that the precious tools and materials essential to pyramid building remain secure until daylight work can resume. These men, often veterans of military service, understand that their role extends beyond mere security to encompass the spiritual protection of a sacred enterprise that serves purposes greater than any individual interest. As the night progresses and the stars wheel overhead in their eternal patterns, the rhythm of work continues with the same dedication and precision that characterizes daylight operations. The pyramid grows, block by block, joint by joint, even in darkness, its progress measured not only in physical dimensions, but in the accumulation of human effort and divine purpose that will ensure its eternal endurance.
The deepest hours of night bring a different quality of rest to our workers' village, when even the most dedicated craftsman must yield to the body's need for restoration and the mind's requirement for dreams. The sounds of construction fade to distant whispers as the night shift works with the quiet efficiency that darkness demands, their muffled activities creating a gentle backdrop to the more intimate rhythms of sleep and recovery that govern our community during these precious hours of respite. In the small courtyard of our mud brick house, I lie on my sleeping mat beside Nefret and young Amenhotep, listening to the soft breathing that speaks of peaceful slumber earned through honest labor. The limestone dust has been washed from my skin, the day's aches soothed with oils scented with frankincense and myrrh, yet my mind continues to process the experiences of another day spent in service to the Pharaoh's eternal glory. Sleep, when it comes, brings dreams filled with visions of completed pyramids reaching toward the stars. The dreams that visit pyramid builders are unlike those of ordinary men, colored by the monumental scale of our daily work and the cosmic purposes we serve. In sleep, I see the pyramid as it will appear when finished, its smooth limestone casing gleaming white in the desert sun, its golden capstone catching Ra's first rays each morning, its perfect geometry serving as a bridge between earth and heaven. These visions sustain us through the hardships of construction, reminding us that our temporary struggles serve eternal purposes. The night sounds of our village create a symphony of human community that speaks to needs deeper than mere physical rest. The soft murmur of conversations between spouses sharing the day's experiences, the gentle crying of infants being comforted by their mothers, the quiet footsteps of night workers moving through the streets. All these sounds weave together into a tapestry of life that continues even as individual consciousness surrenders to sleep's embrace. The children of our community sleep with the profound rest that comes from growing bodies pushed to their limits by the day's activities. Young Amenhotep, exhausted by his endless questions about pyramid construction and his attempts to imitate his father's work with toy tools carved from scraps of wood, lies curled against his mother like a cat seeking warmth. In his dreams, I imagine, he sees himself as a master builder directing the construction of monuments even greater than those we create today. The medical needs of our community continue even during the night hours, as healers tend to workers whose injuries or illnesses require constant attention. The soft glow of oil lamps in the medical quarters creates islands of gentle light in the darkness, where skilled practitioners apply their knowledge of herbs and healing techniques to restore damaged bodies and troubled minds. Their work, like that of the night construction crews, represents a dedication that transcends normal working hours. The spiritual dimensions of rest become more apparent during the deep night hours, when the boundary between waking consciousness and the realm of dreams grows thin and permeable. The priests who serve our community conduct quiet rituals designed to ensure peaceful sleep and protection from the malevolent spirits that Egyptian tradition warns may trouble the dreams of those who work with the dead. These ceremonies, performed in whispered chants and subtle gestures, create an atmosphere of sacred protection that encompasses our entire village.
The night guards who patrol our streets move with the silent efficiency of men trained to protect without disturbing the rest of those they serve. Their presence, barely noticed by sleeping families, represents a constant vigilance that ensures the security of our community and the continuation of work that serves purposes greater than any individual interest. These men, often veterans of military service, understand that their role extends beyond mere protection to encompass the preservation of a sacred enterprise. The astronomical observations that guide the pyramid's construction continue throughout the night, as learned astronomers track the movements of stars and planets that determine the monument's precise orientation. Their calculations, performed in the quiet hours when celestial bodies shine most clearly, form the mathematical foundation upon which all our physical labor depends. These scholars, trained in the temple schools of Egypt's greatest cities, represent the intersection of practical knowledge and cosmic wisdom. The dreams that visit different members of our community reflect their individual roles in the great work we share. Master craftsmen dream of perfect joints and flawless surfaces, while common laborers envision the satisfaction of moving massive blocks with coordinated effort. The women who support our enterprise dream of families reunited when the pyramid's construction is complete, while children dream of following in their father's footsteps as builders of monuments that will outlast kingdoms. The night shift workers, laboring under torchlight while the rest of us sleep, create their own rhythms of rest during brief breaks in their activities. These men, who have learned to find restoration in moments of quiet contemplation rather than extended periods of unconsciousness, develop a different relationship with sleep and dreams. Their rest comes in fragments scattered throughout the night, each brief respite carefully timed to maintain the energy needed for precise work in challenging conditions. The sounds of the Nile, flowing eternally past our construction site, provide a constant backdrop to our night's rest that connects us to the greater rhythms of Egyptian life. The gentle lapping of water against the harbor installations where supply boats dock, the distant calls of night birds hunting along the river's banks, the soft splash of fish jumping in the moonlight, all these sounds remind us that our monumental work takes place within the context of a living landscape that has sustained Egyptian civilization for countless generations. The temperature changes that accompany the desert night bring their own form of restoration, as the crushing heat of day gives way to cooler air that allows overheated bodies to recover from the thermal stress of working under Ra's merciless gaze. The gentle breeze that often rises after midnight carries the sense of the river and the growing things that flourish along its banks, providing a sensory reminder of the natural world that exists beyond our construction site. As the night deepens toward its darkest hour, when even the most dedicated workers pause in their labors and the village settles into its most profound quiet, the pyramid itself seems to rest, its massive presence a sleeping giant that will awaken with the dawn to resume its eternal growth toward the heavens.
The first pale light of dawn touches the eastern horizon like a gentle whisper, announcing the return of Ra's eternal journey across the heavens and the beginning of another day in the endless cycle of pyramid construction. The village stirs slowly, reluctantly, as bodies that have found brief respite in sleep must once again answer the call of sacred duty. This moment, suspended between night's rest and day's labor, holds within it all the hopes and fears, dreams and realities that define our existence as builders of eternity. I rise from my sleeping mat with the careful movements of a man whose body bears the accumulated weight of countless days spent shaping stone and moving massive blocks. The aches that greet each morning have become familiar companions, reminders of the price we pay for participating in work that will outlast our mortal lives. Yet alongside the physical discomfort comes a deeper satisfaction, the knowledge that yesterday's efforts have added to something permanent and meaningful, something that connects our brief existence to the eternal purposes of the gods. Nefret stirs beside me, her eyes opening to meet mine with the understanding that passes between husband and wife who have shared years of this routine. She knows without words that another day of separation awaits, another cycle of worry and hope as I venture forth to work with tools and materials that can maim or kill the careless or unlucky. Her gentle touch as she helps me prepare for the day carries all the love and concern of a woman who has learned to live with the constant awareness that pyramid building claims its share of lives. Young Amenhotep awakens with the boundless energy of childhood, his excitement at the prospect of another day filled with the sights and sounds of construction temporarily overwhelming any memory of yesterday's fatigue. His rapid-fire questions about the day's planned activities reveal a mind already beginning to grasp the complexities of pyramid building, though his understanding remains colored by the wonder that only the young can bring to monumental undertakings. The sounds of the village awakening create a symphony of human activity that has become the soundtrack of our lives. The shuffle of sandaled feet on packed earth, the gentle lowing of cattle being prepared for slaughter, the rhythmic grinding of grain that will become our daily bread.
These familiar noises provide comfort and continuity, anchoring us to routines that give structure and meaning to days that might otherwise be overwhelmed by the magnitude of our task. The morning prayers that begin each day serve purposes beyond their obvious religious functions, creating moments of reflection and spiritual preparation that help us approach our work with proper reverence and understanding. The priests who lead these observances remind us that we labor not merely for earthly purposes, but in service to cosmic principles that govern the universe itself. Their words connect our physical efforts to the eternal struggle between order and chaos that defines existence. The distribution of morning rations follows the same patterns that have governed our community for months and years. Yet each day brings subtle variations that reflect the changing needs of construction and the seasonal availability of different foods. The bread we receive today may be slightly different from yesterday's loaves, the beer flavored with different herbs, the meat portions adjusted to account for the varying demands of different work assignments.
The crew assignments called out by the foreman reveal the day's priorities and challenges, the specific tasks that will advance the pyramid's construction another increment toward completion. Some crews will work on quarrying new blocks, others on transporting finished stones to their destined positions, still others on the precision fitting and placement that requires the highest levels of skill and experience. Each assignment represents a piece of the vast puzzle that is pyramid construction. The tools we gather for the day's work carry the patina of constant use, their surfaces worn smooth by countless hands, and their edges honed by repeated sharpenings. These implements, chisels and mallets, measuring rods and plumb lines, ropes and levers, represent the accumulated wisdom of generations of Egyptian craftsmen, each tool refined through experience to serve its specific purpose with maximum efficiency. The march to the construction site begins once again, our feet following paths worn deep by the passage of countless workers over months and years of continuous construction. The pyramid rises before us in the growing light, its limestone blocks catching the first rays of Ra's chariot and reflecting them back in a display of divine radiance that never fails to inspire awe and reverence in those privileged to witness it. The wall of the crow welcomes us back to the sacred precinct where our true work awaits, its massive gateway serving as a portal between the world of ordinary human concerns and the realm of cosmic purpose where we labor to ensure the Pharaoh's successful journey to eternal life. The ceramic fragments that pave the gateway floor announce our passage with their familiar crunch, a sound that has become as much a part of our daily routine as our own heartbeats. The construction site reveals the progress made during the night shift, new blocks positioned with mathematical precision, surfaces smoothed to perfection, joints fitted so tightly they appear as hairline cracks in what seems to be solid stone. This evidence of continuous progress, of work that never truly stops, reminds us that we are part of something larger than any individual effort, participants in an enterprise that transcends the limitations of mortal existence. As we take up our positions and prepare to begin another day's labor, the sun climbs higher in the eastern sky, its light revealing the full magnitude of what we have already accomplished and what remains to be done. The pyramid, even in its unfinished state,
dominates the landscape with an authority that speaks of divine purpose made manifest in stone, a testament to human skill guided by cosmic wisdom. The eternal cycle begins anew, the same sacred purpose that has driven us since the first foundation stone was laid, the same dedication to perfection that ensures our monument will endure long after our names are forgotten, the same faith in the eternal significance of work that transforms mere laborers into builders of bridges between earth and heaven. Good night, time traveler. May your dreams carry echoes of the voices we borrowed today, and may tomorrow find you rested in the gentle footprints we left on the infinite sand of history.